Thank you.
And I also see.
Oh wow, that's loud.
Just what I mentioned. So I also see Guru Gobind Singh Ji, but I also see the path he took and the qualities that he had to live the life he lived. And then also, I get deep desire to also walk that path.
This is way loud. I feel I'm going to whisper at you guys now. Okay.
And it's scary.
Anybody else want to share? Thank you. Mostly people will say that, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, because when we read their sakhiyan or we hear about their jivan and their life, you can see that there was conflict, you can see that there was battle, and there was violence in an unimaginable way, because we've never experienced or witnessed anything like that through our lives. So we can clearly see the image of a Sant and a Sipahi.
I think also Guru Nanak, actually, in his travels, he went to so many foreign lands, right? Which I think the fact that he went there and was open to learning meant again that he had to come out of his comfort zone and be courageous or open enough to both learn as well as teach.
For me, that's where I go back to, is Guru Nanak Maharaj. He was the first Sant Sipahi for us in the Sikh tradition. Excuse me. The resilience that it would take to challenge a whole system and a structure and a whole country and a whole way of being and practicing, that takes an incredible amount of courage. And just even denying the janeo to his parents, that would not be easy. Imagine if one of your children, those of you that are parents, defied you and said, no, I'm not going to do that thing. What would you do to them? Right? So imagine what he would have had to go through to be heard, to have a different point of view, to have a different perspective, but have the courage to stand by even when everybody is against him and doesn't understand. And that's where the resistance comes from, is a lack of daya, a lack of understanding. So the biggest remembering I want to give you, and I hope that this little journey activates inside of you, is that you are already on the path. But it's understanding the components, and it's understanding that there's still work yet to be done, and it's for you to reflect internally and understand what work you need to do on an individual level. The more time you spend in that space of trying to do Koj inside of yourself, you're getting to know who you are as a being. You're not fragmenting yourself, saying my mind is a separate thing, my body is a separate thing, my soul is a separate thing. They're all one thing. They're all parts of you. The more you understand them, it will allow you to optimize how you show up as a human and who you are in this world around you. So those are the choices that we make. And I take all of my inspiration and examples from Sikh history. My questions for myself on my own journey were in that space of how. How were they the people that we read about? How were they who they were? What was it that made them? And very few people could give me the answer to that. Everybody was kind of giving me vague things, and they were just born that way, they were enlightened, and a part of me just didn't fully agree. And I will have the unpopular opinion in this room and on this broadcast as well. I don't believe in miracles, coincidence, or luck. I believe in hukam. And maybe that's a defect on my part, that I think logically, but I need to understand the process, because I believe that there was a process. Somebody telling me to believe a thing just because they're telling me isn't going to make me believe the thing. I need more substance to it. I need to understand how this actually works. And that was what I was able to experience through the journey of learning Kirtan, that there is rhyme and reason for these instruments to be there. There is rhyme and reason for the whole of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj to be written in rag. We've just not had access to people who have that understanding to share it with us, or that will go and do the work to figure it out. So hopefully this changes that now, because you all will have most of the information by the end of this little presentation. This terminology, there's different words that we use, and a lot of people, when they get up on a stage, they'll throw around all of these terms and people get confused. What does this mean? Is this different to the other thing? No, they're all actually the same thing. So for Sikh music or for Kirtan, there's a number of different terms that are used, all of these that you see. Gurmat Sangeet, Shabad Kirtan, Gurbani Kirtan, Rag Kirtan. The distinction for Rag Kirtan, I will give, because this is on the assumption that you already understand what Rag Kirtan is. Now, in more popular practice, in all of the Gurdwara across the world, Kirtan is not sung in Rag. Very rarely will you experience Kirtan being sung in Rag. When I would ask my parents, they would tell me that everybody sings in Rag. But now that I actually understand music and I know the Rags, no, they don't. And when we're talking about Kirtan, there's a particular maryada that we're supposed to follow. And everything is there and present in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. So for me, I like to strip it down and go back to basics. If I want to call myself a Sikh, that means I need to be ready to learn. That means that I've employed a teacher, which is my guru, and I am the student. And this hierarchy must remain if that relationship is to thrive and to flourish. The moment this hierarchy shifts, everything will go out of balance. So think of any learning dynamic. The moment a student starts to compete with their teacher, there's always going to be conflict, or that relationship might not continue to be so thriving and so healthy. Spiritually, when we're bowing our head to the Guru, we're giving up our ego and our self and our identity, and we're asking Guru to give us an update. It's almost like every time you click update on your phone and you're going for the next iOS or whatever Android has the equivalent of, you're asking to improve how you operate. You're asking for more information by submitting your ego into the feet of the Guru. And there's a cleansing that happens in that process. But if the mental process hasn't been activated, you've denied yourself that update. If you don't have that relationship with your Guru, then you're not going to receive that update. You're just going to do the motions. You're going to matha take, you're going to get your prasad, listen to Bere Kirtan, and go hang out in the langar hall. And that was your day of being a Sikh. And that's what most people do. But we're missing the whole picture. This is supposed to be a space of education. As Sikh, we're meant to be intellectuals. We're meant to explore into history and into academia. We're meant to look at other ways to continue to grow and to work and operate at a higher level of efficiency. Unfortunately, we're not doing that. When that dynamic of a teacher and a student is established, it means that you are there to learn from the teacher. Like if we think about the old Guru Shishya system, the principles are the same. Teacher gives the instructions, student follows, practices, and then you get the results. And in that process, there is a relationship, there is communication, there are questions being asked and answers being given, and then maybe even some redirection in that process because you're growing. So when it comes to Kirtan, and specifically Sikh Kirtan, for me it's very clear. And yes, unpopular opinion. Kirtan should only be sung and recited and received as it's written in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. What that means is that if there is a rag assigned to that shabad, we are being given a clear command, a hukam, to sing, read, interpret, translate through the lens of that particular rag. We do not have the authority to change up that rag, put something else there, change it up with a different rag from Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, bring in a rag from Indian classical music, or switch it up with a different tune. We don't have that authority. At that moment, we're in direct competition with Guru Gobind Singh Ji, because the final editing of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj was done by Guru Gobind Singh Ji before the Guru Gaddi was given. So I know that feels really serious, but it's important for us to understand what we're doing. We're making light of it globally and saying it's okay because this is, this is my mom and my dad. I can get away with this. It's okay. They don't mind. They love me. Okay. Really? Is that actually okay? No, it's not okay. Because we've changed the dynamic, which means we're actually not learning now. We've become lazy in that space. We've become complacent with this degradation that's happening to our psyche. And now we're enabling it and we're actually expanding it. The worst that I've heard is shabads being sung to Michael Jackson tunes.
What?
Yes. Yes. And you guys have dub Simran and all other sorts of things coming up in the UK. Like, that's where we're at now. And this has been an evolution over the last 50, 60 years. It began with what we call Bollywood Kirtan. You guys have all heard it. When you recognize that tune and you're like, hang on, this is from that film, right? I see all the nodding heads. We are trying to give something sacred to our Guru and we're putting it in a jhutha panda. But we're saying, Tum ho sab rajan ke raja. Like, you're the king of the kings. But I'm going to give you something secondhand. I'm going to give you something used. For me, that's not what we would present to a king. And not to the king of the universe, at least. So, I have very, very different opinions to the world out there. But they come through the exploration of Gurbani and through understanding, on a simple level. If I thought that I was complete as a person, as a soul, I would have ascended already. I wouldn't be here. But I'm not. So I employed a guru to help me become better. Why would I compete with my guru? Because my guru knows more than me. So why can I not just remove my ego and follow the path that my guru's laid out? Then I'll get the results. The problem comes when we reinterpret what's being written. Then we look at popular trends and then you meet these pop kirtaniyas who'll show up and they'll say, hey, I'm going to teach you this shabad and it's on this funky tune, and because it sounds really good and everybody in the divan is kind of bopping to it in their own way, all of a sudden it's okay because everybody's singing and it feels so nice because everyone's singing kirtan together and oh my God, we can all live happily ever after. Is that what we want? We're about quality, not quantity. And the quantity comes through that connection with the Guru. So unless we are holding ourselves individually to a higher level of accountability, a higher standard, nothing will change. The reason I'm doing my research and I'm taking myself back into education, which is not an easy or a forgiving process, I'm questioning all of my life choices right now, is because we deserve better as a Qawm. And I don't see other people stepping into that space to do something about it. But something has to change. And if we're not contributing to that change because we didn't do the work to read about it or to find out about it, or we're happy just to be spoon-fed information from people who we invite in, and we're not researching or questioning beyond that, then we become a part of the problem. If we want to shift this, which we can, we have to then step into action. So what I'll be sharing with you now is Sikh music from its traditional perspective, what it used to be, not what it is now. And yeah, hold on to your seats, guys. I'll break down Rag for you. Traditionally, all of Gurbani was written by hand. All of the Sarups of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj were written by hand. And as you can see, they were ladivar. There were no spaces between the words. Again, there was very specific reason behind this. The separation of the words is something that's happened in recent times when we move from handwritten sarups to stone printed and then to digital. And there are inconsistencies that have occurred in that process. If you were trying to read this Shabad, say you're trying to read Japji Sahib, right? And you're reading in Gurmukhi, or even the Mool Mantar, whatever it is, wherever your access is, when you're looking, if you were to take your eyes away for a moment, you lose where you are, it breaks your focus. Think about that for a moment. That the Gurus thought about us to that level where they were like, how can I keep every Sikh focused and locked in while they're doing their part and actually engaging their brain, because they knew that the brain was lazy, because they've talked about the man so much, they understand the ways of the man. So the Mani is going to say, well, I already know this, so I can just say it off memory, and it doesn't have to be accurate to the pronunciation of every single letter or symbol that I see. But when your eyes are on the page and you're reading, if your mind, even for a second, goes somewhere else, it's going to break the word at the wrong point, and you're going to be like, oh no, hang on, where was I? That doesn't make sense. That's not what I wanted to say. And it's going to pull your focus back in. The whole idea was to stay connected, and we were given the tools to be connected. But now we've gone into ease. So something as simple as that, as reading from Larivar, is a practice for you to sharpen your inner focus, your inner discipline. Rag has two sides, technical and emotional. The technical side of every rag is achieved through the sequence of notes that are played. So every rag has different rules, ascending and descending, and they're all a little bit different. Then they have points of emphasis. So I'm not going to go too much into the technical stuff, but there's instructions that you would follow in order to achieve that particular rag and to play that rag. If you don't adhere to those instructions, then you're going to change the rag. Okay, it's the same practice in Indian classical music as well. The other side of the rag is the emotional side. And for me, this is the most important. Every rag speaks to our emotions as humans. And this is, I would say, the most revolutionary thing about the entire Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, is that Guru Sahib spoke to us as humans through our emotions, and then taught us and told us how to use that energy. So when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling angry or enraged or whatever it is, how can you use the rags to move that energy through your body so it doesn't stay inside of you? More research now being done on trauma that's available on social media and wider networks is highlighting the gravitas of how stress actually lives in the body. So unless you're moving it out or you have a practice to actually take this out of your body, it will stay in your body, and it will stay there for the entirety of your life, and you'll continue to hoard more negative experiences that will stay in your body, and eventually they become the root of any form of illness, sickness or disease that will manifest in your body. And it all comes at the root of emotion. Guru Sahib understood that. They knew that. And then they gave us the medicine to go with it, which is Kirtan. Understanding how each rag, you've lived all of them many, many, many times, countless times throughout all of your lives. You just right now don't have the language for them. If we sat here and we went through each rag and I told you the mood of every rag, and then I asked you for an experience that you've had in your life of that feeling, you would give me many, many stories. And then imagine if we had 60 boxes and now you've organized all of your life experiences into these 60 boxes, all of a sudden it becomes quite manageable. And then when you know how to use that with Kirtan, you know how to take that out of your body. And the biggest therapist that you have, the biggest physician that you have is a Akal Purkh. That's why Guru Sahib says, Mera Vaid Guru Govinda. You're my physician. You're the one who's going to heal me. You're the one who's going to fix me. But how? Not just magically, but actually using the technology. This is my supervisor and professor at the University of California in Riverside, Dr. Pishora Singh. He is an esteemed scholar, and this has just gone away, but very important in the space of Sikh studies. They've done a lot of work, incredible work, in writing academic perspectives of Sikh history and bringing new ideas forward. So I'm very grateful to be working under their guidance. And we will go into the lecture. So you guys can read the slides and I'm going to talk around them, okay? So Kirtan comes from Sanskrit. There's different terms and terminology for it. It is the expression that will come on a spiritual level. The idea of Kirtan is to connect with the divine. And it comes through sound, it comes through surrender, inner surrender. It's not something that you're just meant to do. The objective of Kirtan is to become Kirtan, to become as fluid as the sound, and to become connected into that frequency of ek onkar, that constant vibration, that there is no separation between you and the divine, and that you are the divine and he is you. Kirtan has been the foundation of where Sikhi began from. There's really important details that we have had omitted or erased from our history. If you pick up any Sikh history book, you'll never read about Kirtan. You'll never be told about the instruments. And I ask you why? Something to think about. Why is it that it's not there? If it's so important, and we know that it's important, why has it been separated or erased from the pages of our history? If I were to ask you who are the characters in this particular image, could you give me their names? Who? Which one? Over there? How do you know? He's playing a what? A rabab. Okay. And what is a rabab?
String instrument.
Okay. And then you have? And? Baibala. Yes. So we know this. You guys know this. So where is the rabab now then? Why don't we have it in our Gurdwara? If that's where we began from, and we know the words, and we know the names, did you ever question? Or wonder?
After 1947, the partition, where rababis were now, Muslim rababis were not allowed to play in Gurdwara. But it was a tradition from the Guru's time.
It was a tradition from the Guru's times. Many, many, many reasons. But yes, that has a role to play in it.
It was before that, right? The British influence.
I don't know. We'll find out. The Janam Sakhis, they make reference to how Gurbani came and that connection between Bhai Mardana and Guru Nanak Maharaj. And we can see through these, like this is a painting of the Janam Sakhis from the British Library from the 19th century, from one of the manuscripts which captures these visuals. And it's ironic to me that we are so disconnected from even that. Like, forget about all the other instruments. If we're thinking about the rabab, this was integral to the whole formation of Sikhi as it was. The person who made the rabab, who crafted it, was called Bhai Faranda. They received the instruction through Guru Nanak Maharaj to create this rabab. A very important detail is that when Guru Nanak Maharaj and Bhai Mardana first met, Bhai Mardana was already proficient in playing rabab, but they had a different type of rabab. It was a Drupadi rabab, it was like smaller in length and it had 6 strings on it. Slightly different playing technique. And I think about this logically, that if Guru Nanak Maharaj knew that they had to go out into the world and they had to do this great work and get on this mission, there would be a sense of urgency, like, let's go now. You've got the instrument, I know what I need to do, let's go, let's hit the road. It's not what happened, not exactly at least. This instrument had to be created. There were at least 60 different types of rababs or like plucked instruments that existed at that time. The Drupadi rabab was already there, available to them. Bhai Mardana already played it. So why? Why did they have to have a new instrument made? And why was it that new instrument that then went with them onto their first Udasi and every Udasi from then? And they say the devil is in the details. I don't know the exact answer, but something inside me tells me it's bigger than we understand it to be. It's not by chance. It's not like, oh, any instrument will do. There's precision to this. Because Maharaj was trying to carve our psyche. At the time when Guru Nanak Maharaj actually rose and used their voice in the land of India was when it was being ruled by Babur with 1,000 men from Afghanistan. 1,000 men rule the whole land of India. It doesn't sound quite believable. Like what would these 1,000 men have to take control of an entire nation and country? For me, what I understood from it is that the psyche of everybody that they had ruled over was so low vibrational, low frequency, that when you have low self-esteem, you will submit. You will allow oppression to take place. It was to the point where the men at that time who were imprisoned, who were under Baba's rule, were giving this. They said, take our wives, take our daughters, take anything you want, take our riches, but spare our lives. When you're in that state of desperation, just for your own survival, it means that you are definitely in a very low vibration, that you just, all you care about is yourself, is self-preservation. You're giving your daughter, your mother, your sister, you're saying, take whatever you want, but just spare my life. And that was when Guru Nanak Maharaj stood up and awoke the whole of the land of India by reinstalling their connection with their own self-dignity, by letting them know that the light of Guru lives in each of you. And you must light each other as candles, and you must remember that too, that power exists within you. There is no separation between you and the divine. And that was the whole purpose of the Sikh path being formed. So when I'm thinking about how it was constructed and what the tools were, what the planning was, so to speak, the rabab is integral in that. This instrument was created by Bhai Faranda. It was paid for by Bebe Nanaki, and she gifted it to her brother, to Guru Nanak Maharaj. And then Guru Nanak Ji gave it to Bhai Mardana. And as I said, that was the instrument that went with them from the first Udasi, from there on. So none of this is by chance. This seems very precise. This seems very, very intentional. So when we're looking at this, we must also look at it with that same level of intention and seriousness. How we are instructed to sing Kirtan is adhering to the rag that's assigned to the Shabad. So Gurbani first began to be written by Guru Nanak Maharaj. They wrote rags on some of the Shabads, not on all of them at that time. They had their pothis when they were writing down whatever they were receiving. They wrote rags. They wrote Gurbani. They had a rabab created. So rag, rabab and Shabad cannot be separated. They are the ingredients of what Kirtan actually is. It doesn't matter how many different names we give it now. The true essence of what Kirtan is in the Sikh framework is this: using those instruments given by the Gurus, reading and reciting the Shabad and the Rag that it's instructed in. If that is the greatest physician of all, if we want to heal, if we want to achieve wellness, we must follow the instructions of the physician. If a doctor gives you a prescription and you don't follow it, you're not going to get the result or the healing that you want or the relief that you want. So if you want your inner body, your soul and your mind to be in ease and to be in peace, the way to achieve that is simply by following the instructions of the greatest physician, that is. That was where the foundation was laid for Kirtan. This is a little clip for you to hear. So it's going to play on my laptop. Is that okay? Let me just make this louder. But just so you can hear the sound of the rabab, and you can see there's 5 strings. Maybe you can't see them that clearly, but there's 5 gut strings and 11 sympathetic strings on this instrument. And it's played with a java or a jeel, as it's written in Gurbani. So this is just for you to understand a few basic things from the principles of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, also referred to when you're looking in academic texts, they'll say Ad Granth. Everything that we're taught through Gurbani is to help us to connect with the depths of who we are and to understand how to become Ik Oankar. So God is one, but we are one. There is no separation or distinction between any of us or any frequency or any form of life. It comes from that one and it belongs to that one. And you are that one also. We're often not given the permission to think about that. It's almost like God or Akal Purkh is this separate entity that lives outside of us. How would that shift when that same reverence and that same pyar you offer to yourself in your hirda inside of you? Let's do this. Wherever you're sitting, just sit comfortably. If your legs are crossed, uncross them. Sit straight in your seat and just close your eyes for a moment. Okay? Hands can be relaxed however you feel comfortable. And I want you to breathe in and out through your nose gently into your belly. Okay? So breathe in through your nose, expand your belly, and when you exhale, you're pulling your belly button in to exhale, and you're making the exhale longer than the inhale. And I want you to stay in this space. So first make the connection with your body. Feel the breath coming in through your nostrils, coming through your body, filling up your belly. Fill up your belly as much as you can. It shouldn't make your chest rise, only your belly should be activated. And then you release the breath at a slower pace than the inhale. Continue with that flow, with that pace. Soften your shoulders a little. Let your body relax. Feel that sense of ease in your body. That sense of relaxation and letting go. If there is something that's making you feel tense, let it be released through your exhale. And I want you to continue this breathing. And I'm going to give you some more instructions. Home is the sense of I. I is the thing that separates you from becoming one. So as you're exhaling, if you can feel into what your home looks like or feels like, try to create a detachment from it. Try to release it and surrender it into Guru's feet. In your heart, express your desire to want to become one with Akal Purkh. Feel the emptiness in your body. Feel your body becoming lighter. And then I want you to imagine that in your heart center, in the middle of your body, there's a little diva, a flame. We're going to call that flame Vaheguru. And every time you breathe in, that flame gets brighter. And when you're exhaling all of that negativity, all of the things that separate you from becoming one, becoming Ik Oankar. Every time you inhale, let that flame get brighter and bigger. And feel your body getting warmer. That flame's now fueling you, it's creating warmth inside of you. You are that flame and that flame is you. You are the Jyot. Can you feel that? Take a couple more deep breaths, and then I'll ask you to open your eyes. When I do this exercise, I literally feel my face get warm, my cheeks will get pink, because I can feel that heat, I can feel that warmth. It's not something that's just imaginary in my mind. The diva is there, that light is there. Did you feel it? And it will take practice to make that connection. Sometimes it doesn't always come straight away. But the reason I wanted you to go into that is because we can talk about things all day long, but the experience of them is what's going to convince your mind that there's more to this. Something as simple as that, to cut out all of the noise, to take away the things that separate us, to remember who we're supposed to be. And the closer you are to that feeling of oneness is how you activate all of these values that we were talking about: resilience, courage, strength, perseverance, pyar. They all come from inside of us, but we need to know how to channel them in and where they come from. And the whole of Gurbani is helping us to create that pathway. Naam is that kunji, that chabbi that opens that gateway for us. It's the vibration that we're trying to tune into, that frequency that we're trying to stay connected with. If you think about those radios, you guys are young, but like the old school radios, you have to tune in frequencies, right? That's how I imagine it to be on a spiritual level. Sometimes you get the station, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a different station. But the more you go into that space, the stronger that connection will become, and you'll know which station you need to tune into. We talked about the contribution of Guru Nanak Maharaj. The second major contribution in Gurmat Sangeet and the world of Sikh music comes from Guru Arjan Ji. There's often a misunderstanding in terms of their contribution. People associate the saranda, which is the second instrument that belongs to Sikh music. I'll show you a clip of it later on. They associate that with the darbar of the third Guru, of Guru Amar Das Ji. The reason for that misconception or misunderstanding, we'll say, is because at the time that the saranda was created, Guru Amar Das Ji was Guru. Guru Arjan was not Guru at that time, but was 13 years old. Arjan Mal was his name. And at the age of 13, created a brand new musical instrument called saranda. And it's beautiful in how it looks visually, but how it sounds is incredible. And I'll show it to you in a few slides, okay? So that instrument was created when Guru Arjan Ji was 13, and it was used to do kirtan in the darbar of Guru Amar Das Ji. So that's where some people, historically, when they're sharing this information, they don't go into the depths of why and how. But when I was researching and I was looking to understand, like, there must be clarity, there must be a better way to understand this, that why are people saying that Guru Arjan Maharaj created the saranda and Guru Amar Das Ji created the saranda, or it contradicts. So that is the reason for that. That it wasn't created by Guru Amar Das Ji, but was used in their darbar. Guru Arjan Ji gave us a huge, like, oh my God, I can't even measure. They gave us so much. Compiling all of the writings of the previous gurus into the Ad Granth, then organizing it and sequencing, and then creating rags to assign to some of those shabads that had been written, and creating new rags, creating a new musical instrument. And in the darbar of Guru Arjan Maharaj, the jodi was created. The tabla is not the jodi. Jodi is a percussion drum. Do you know what a mardang is? No? I think there might be a picture of it afterwards. It's a single barrel drum that's played from the sides. It's different to the mardangam used in South Indian music, but similar in like the playing technique, because it's it's got the same shape. One side is much smaller in the South Indian drum. It was the mardang that we had used in the court of the Gurus up until then. The court musicians, Bhai Satta and Balwand, they, with Guru Arjan Maharaj's hukam, they wanted to reconstruct this instrument. And essentially what happened is this one barrel drum was cut in the center and then turned upright to create two drums. The smaller drum had the shahi, the little black dot that you see on the tabla, and the larger drum, both barrels were made of wood, okay? The larger drum didn't have the black dot. They would apply atta, fresh atta that we use to make roti, on the top of that drum in the center. And that was to give it a louder, deeper, more resonant voice. And if we're thinking about how they would engage in kirtan or in darbars at that time, they didn't have structured buildings like this. They were outside. They were outside gatherings of hundreds to even thousands. So these instruments, the vibration of them would travel through the air and through the ground for the jodi. Like if anybody's playing jodi and you sit near them or even in the same room, you will literally feel the vibration in the ground, like beneath you. And these instruments are acoustic, so they have a bigger voice. They can play in outdoor environments without needing the structure of walls and buildings, because that's how they were designed. So a little bit into some of the concepts that are introduced by Guru Arjan Ji and by the previous Gurus, but I'm going to say I feel that Guru Arjan Maharaj kind of leans into these a little bit more. The idea of anhad, which is beyond sound. And that doesn't make sense to our logical brain, because what is beyond sound? And this takes us towards frequency, because there's frequencies and vibrations that exist around us. There's frequencies and vibrations that exist within us as well. And it's about tuning into them. So anhad naad is called unstruck sound or unstruck melody. This is not audible to the human ear, but it's vibration and sound that exists beyond that. If you've ever met a deeply spiritual person who is like very, very well accomplished, I will say, like a Mahapurkh, true Mahapurkh, you'll feel it in their energy, you'll feel it in their aura, just from who they are. They don't have to say much. And one of the things that I've heard through their experiences is that you get to a state of stillness where all of the noise settles, the connection remains unbroken, and you hear kirtan consistently, but not physically around you. So it's coming from a different frequency, a different radio station, so to speak. And that to me is just absolutely fascinating, that this is an avastha, a state of being that we can achieve through this practice. And that is when you're in oneness consistently. That's the aim. That's what bliss feels like, or heaven feels like in your body. Because I don't believe that we have heaven and hell. It's a Christian concept. I believe we have heaven and hell, like it's all in here. We are it. We've experienced it. We've seen our darkness. We've seen our light. And sometimes one dominates over the other. And it's about that understanding and about that balance of how they work in harmony and unison, and what it takes to keep them in that space of balance and pyar. Kirtan is experienced through listening, but also through singing. So when you're listening to kirtan, you're going to have an experience. You're going to receive something because you're in that frequency. When you're doing part, you're also in a frequency, because there's a vibration that's being generated and a connection that's being made. We engage in part and kirtan as part of our regular Sangat. It's how our Gurdwaras are structured. But I don't think we understand how powerful it can be. Because when you're doing Kirtan as a Sangat, when you're doing Simran as a Sangat, it multiplies the impact and the resonance on a frequency level. So 1 and 1 is not 2, 1 and 1 becomes 11. This is how the global vibration is lifted. So when Guru Nanak Maharaj was going around and they're doing Kirtan, that is how the frequency shifted, that is how the psyche shifted, that is how the jivan of people shifted, because everybody coming together, tuning into the same frequency with the same intention, and then you're putting it out, the amplification was massive. So a lot of people think that when peace prayers and other things are done, that what difference is it going to make? You're not actually physically doing something. It's not going to make a change. You're just sitting there and having wishful thinking. On a much higher spiritual level, it's probably all of those prayers and all of that goodness that's going out into the universe that's keeping some goodness around us right now. So when we're looking at how we're meant to be reciting and how we're meant to be practicing, the evidence and the patterns are also there, that on a frequency level, we can uplift and impact the global frequency. We can shift something from a negative to a positive simply through our inner intentions when we're connected and when we're attuned to wanting to achieve a better result. So the practice when we're in our homes, when we're in the Gurdwara Sahib, when we're in our cars, all of that goodness that you're connecting with, and the more often you're going to that space and tuning into that frequency is impacting the universe, because the universe speaks in frequency. This is, I want to ask you guys this. Who is a Sikh? I feel like I gave you that answer earlier on.
Take a picture if you don't mind.
I don't believe in complicating things. I like to simplify them. I think life's too complicated already. And I want efficiency. I don't want complication. A Sikh is, yes, somebody who learns every day. It's not something that you switch on and off. It's something that you just are. And when you look at it through the lens of our gurus, you recognize that every breath and every moment and every experience and every single interaction, regardless of how you feel about them, is a part of your Sikhi, your journey of Sikhi. If you're choosing to attach that title to yourself and you're proclaiming that to Maharaj, that I want to be yours, I want to be on your path, I identify as a Sikh. You've now announced it to the universe. That requires a commitment from you too. And that commitment is showing up every day for yourself. It means recognizing that every opportunity and every experience is an opportunity for you to grow and to learn. That includes when you're driving on the M25 and somebody cuts you up and it activates you and you're like, oh, that's something for you to, I'm sure you say a lot more than that. I'm being nice right now because I'm on camera. But when it brings anger and rage inside of you, have you ever thought about what that could mean for you and how that could have a positive impact on you? Or does it just stay in that moment? And now, first you were fine and you were driving happily. Somebody just cut you up and it startles you. And you're a little bit now discombobulated and you're effing and blinding probably. And you're continuing to drive. But now all of a sudden your awareness is sharper and you're checking all of your mirrors and you're driving better than you were before. Have you ever stopped in that moment to think, oh, what am I meant to learn from this? Why did that need to happen right now in this moment? And Maharaj, what am I meant to learn from this in this moment? How does this help me grow and understand more about myself or to be better? Have any of you ever done that? Good, I like to see nodding heads. It's interesting to think about, especially when people ruffle our feathers. That what do I have to learn from this? And one thing that I say to my clients and the people I work with is that everybody's a mirror. They're a reflection of you. And if they're making you feel a particular way, it's because that feeling inside of you is unresolved. And Maharaj is sending you a reminder that, hey, you still got work to do. You said you were going to do this thing and you didn't do it. And you ignored it and you carried on. So I'm sending you a reminder so that you can continue to upgrade. You can know that this isn't to make you feel less than. This is to help you become more than. But are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to shed that layer? Are you ready to choose to become better? This is all very academic, but it's just simply highlighting how the transmission of Kirtan and Sikh practice can come from one generation to the next. When we receive that connection through our parents, all of a sudden it becomes richer. It becomes more potent. And we make an attachment. Oh, my mom used to play Vaja. This is my mom's Vaja. So I want to play this. Even though I know that these are the instruments of the Gurus and that's what I should be playing, but this is my mom's. And she taught me this Shabad. And she used to sing this Shabad all the time. And I know it's not in Rag, and I know that that's not how the Gurus wrote it, but it means so much to me because my mom used to sing it to me. It's difficult. But you must choose your own paths. You must choose your own commitments to your Guru. That's not for me to judge or to decide for you. I'm just giving you information. That practice of Sikhi, back in the day, wasn't how we have it now. You didn't need to go to teachers for everything. The parents were equipped with the information. And the units were activated where the parents would be teaching their children. They would be teaching them Santhya and Gurmukhi and Shastra Vidya and Rag Kirtan, because everybody was doing this. This was just the lifestyle back then. Now we've come far away from it. Now we have to employ teachers and bring them in for these different things to try to now arm ourselves with this knowledge and with these skills and to become more proficient. But these used to be components and extensions of who we just were, and knowledge was transmitted from parent to child. So nowadays, it's much more challenging. We have different lifestyles, and not everybody has the information. But imagine how beautiful it would be and could be if those seeds of Sikhi come from you to the people that you love, and not just your children, not just your family, but to your Sangat, your friends, the people around you that you care about. Naam Simran is a really important component of Sikhi. And it's not that, this is something that sometimes makes my heart ache a little bit. People that I speak to, some of them will say, oh, you're supposed to do Simran and only do Simran. And everything else is like, it's okay if you don't do that. It's okay if you don't do Nitnem. It's okay if you're not learning Kirtan. It's okay if you're not reading other Bani. As long as you do your Simran, you're fine. I disagree with that. I think that we need to come to a state of preparation. You can't just go into the gym and start lifting weights. You can't just walk into a university and start teaching. There's a process of preparation that's required for you to understand what components you need to put in place and how you need to prepare yourselves, your mind and your body and your psyche to be ready for this big thing. It doesn't mean don't do Naam Simran, but it means that if you want to get the most potency out of it, then you need to carve your psyche. You need to be prepared in your mind on how to welcome this when it comes in, when that connection is attuned. Kirtan gives you so many different things. It gives you that balance, that foundation, that pathway, and it helps you move forward in understanding what spiritual connection and spiritual experience feels like. It will take you deeper and deeper into the darker corners of yourself, and you must go into that darkness in order to light it back up. But if you haven't done that work, you haven't resolved those things inside of you, Naam won't hit every part of your being. Where the darkness still remains, it won't hit in there. You need to go in first and light up all of those corners. Then when the Naam comes in, you're just gonna light up like Christmas lights. I was trying to think, like a Christmas tree. There you go. I don't do Christmas trees, so that's why I lost the word there. Christmas lights. These words, Vismad, Sahaj, and Sachkhand, these for me, like, how do I help you visualize this? Think of a computer game, okay? You're looking at different levels, and at the end of every level, there's a boss that you have to beat to get to the next level, okay? That boss is inside of you. I know this is a really poor example, but I like to, like I said, keep it simple so you can imagine it in your minds, that when we're going through our steps of Sikhi, there's never really an end point because all of our paths are different, but the directions are there. Kirtan is important for us to access and clean up our emotions and, what do I say? Connect with how to use them to grow and expand spiritually. That's almost like the preparation. Then we come into the Naam phase of our Sikhi, and that will take you through different levels. It's going to help you find patience and peace and tolerance first. That's going to become, it's going to evolve further to what we call Vismad, which is like the feeling of ecstasy, you can say, where it's so vast, you can't comprehend it and put it into words. And then that grows further to the next level, which we call Sachkhand, the realm of truth, where you understand and you recognize all of the things that are, and all of a sudden all of the illusions dispel. And this game of Maya becomes very transparent and very clear in that space. That ascension comes through the process of frequency. And Maharaj is giving us pathways to different frequencies to get there. Meditation, that's what we want to call it. I call it abhyas and tapasya. Those are the things that help us to get there. So tuning in the human body, recognizing that the body and the mind are not separate things. They are one thing, but they just have not befriended each other in a long time. And that separation between them is what's creating all of that disruption inside of us. Once they unify and they become one again and they become friends again and start looking out for each other, that shifts. Patience, contentment, humility, love, and truthful living. That's everything that we're trying to achieve and practice and be good people, right? But how do we get there? How do we get there? A japa jap, that was what I was talking about earlier, where it's continuous and it's just going on. You enter that state of connection, that attunement into frequency where there is no separation. There is just one. Everything is just one. Everything is in that frequency, and that continuous nad is resounding inside of you. And that's like the little concert happening in the middle of your heart, next to that little light that you all lit today. Some people attach Kirtan as musical mysticism because of how it can sound. So with the instruments being played, it says, what does it say? In that spiritual state, the wondrous continents, regions, lands, and zones shall be revealed. And for me, when I think about what this means, it's not that they're separate things out there in the world. All of that is within you. The whole universe is within you. So the deeper you go into it, the more you learn about yourself, the more blocks you clear, the quicker you become one. Like it all goes back to one. That's where we're trying to get. Trying to get into that state of oneness. Living in this world, there's challenges we have to overcome that keep us in duality, keep us in confusion and in separation. Our job is to be able to discern them and overcome them. Yes, I put that quote in here. So you can read this. Personal religious experience. Music plays a threefold role. It satisfies your aesthetic sensibilities. It dominates your sentiment, which we call the rasa, or the ras. And that almost feeds your inner consciousness. Where something tastes so good and you want to keep coming back to it. It's that feeling. And third is the transportation, where it takes you into that space of vismad. So you're ascending not out of your body, just within your body, in your being, and you're making this deeper connection. All of these things are important, very, very important. And I'm going to come back to, I'm going to skip over a couple of these because I'm also looking at the time. Where are we going? Okay. I briefly talked about some of the technical stuff at the beginning. If we're thinking about Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, those of you that haven't actually sat with Maharaj yourself and read yourself, a quick intro is that there's three main sections, you can say. The first section is the Nitnem Baniya, where you have Jap, or you call Japji. Then you have Sodar and Sopurk, which is the Rera Sahib, and then Kirtan Sohila, or Sohila. So morning, evening, bedtime, right there. After that begins the major component of Gurbani, which are the Rag chapters, starting from Siri Rag as the first main Rag chapter, and then it goes through a sequence of all of the Rags. And then at the end, you have the third section, which is called Slok, Vara and Vadik, which is like poetry and couplets, some from the Gurus and some from the Bhagats and the other saints that have contributed to Gurbani. That's like compiled there. And they're not in Rag. So Jap is not written in Rag. Sodar and Sopurk have Rags assigned, so does Sohila. And then you have the major component of Gurbani, which is all in Rag. All of it is in Rag. A Slok, Vara and Vadik doesn't have Rags assigned. Most people will say that there are 31 Rags. That is popular narrative. And that is not true. Or the interpretation of it is not correct, we'll say. We'll be nice. It's not correct. There's 60 Rags in total. If you were to go through and actually write down each and every Rag that you come across in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj, you'll come to a total of 60. Okay? The reason people say 31 is because they are packing in Mishrat Rags, and I'll explain what that means in a second, in like sections, that all of the Gaudi Rags come together, that makes one section. All of these that have the same name or similar name, they come into one section. They've made 31 sections according to that. Simplifying it, if you think about, say somebody has octuplets, right? I don't know what 12 would be, I can't say it. A dozen. They have a dozen kids at the same time. When you become an academic, you lose your brain. That's what's happening. If they had a number of children in one birth, would you call them all the same name? Would you say that they're all exactly the same person and they have the same personality? No. Why not? How would you identify them? Are they all going to have the same personality? No. So if you look at the Rags in the same way, they clearly have different names. Gaudi Maj, Gaudi Malva, Gaudi Mala, Gaudi Sorat. There's like 11 variations of Gaudi. Gaudi is one Rag, and then there's 11 variations of it. I don't have the authority to say that they're all the same. I can't erase the additional Rag that Gurus put in the title, in the Sidlik. When there's two Rags together, so Gaudi is one Rag, Maj is a separate Rag, and Mishrat Rag is when two Rags are being combined. So Gaudi Maj is one of the Rags in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. Sorat is a separate Rag. Gaudi Sorat is... My laptop's going to die. Okay. Gaudi Sorat is another example. But there's multiple different Mishrat Rags. They all have different moods. That's what I'm trying to say. Is if we're taking away the meaning of the Rag, then it doesn't matter. then we can say whatever we roll as the Sikh, and this is our Guru, this is the teacher, and we're the Sikh, and we're doing what's there, what's written there in black and white, then it's clear. There's 60 different rags. Each of them have different moods, and that's it. It's that simple. It's not complicated. 28 of those 60 rags were taken from the existing framework of Hindustani Sangeet. 32 rags were created new by the Sikh Gurus. So they took from, and like whatever was existing at that time that was relevant, they didn't take all of the rags from Indian classical music, but they created new rags that didn't exist. So we had instruments created. Now we've got rags being created as well. I'll let you take the picture.
Just been downstairs and they're going to close the langar up. So are they on?
We're going to be wrapping up soon.
Okay.
Yes.
Should I tell them to hang on? Because
Yeah, you can tell them to hang on. We'll have a break.
we're having a break.
Yeah. Okay. These are the 6 instruments that are affiliated with the Sikh court, the Guru Darbar. Rabab, Saranda. So I'm telling you in order of their introduction into Sikh history. Rabab came first, then Saranda, the Jodi, which is also called the Pakavaj over here, and then you have the Taus, which looks like a peacock, and the Dilruba, which is a smaller version of the Taus. So those are the instruments that belong to our heritage, that were given to us by our Gurus. And let me see if I can play. Will the sound play? There it is. This is the sound of the Saranda. Oh, excuse me. Okay, you just got a little snippet then. But I wanted to just show you the instrument is hollow from the upper part of the sound box. So you can literally put your hand from one side and out the other, and it only has skin on the lower half, which gives it that deeper sound. The playing technique of this is different. It's played with the cuticle, so like the side of the nail, and it has 3 main strings. The rest are sympathetic. And it is just an astonishing instrument. This is the Jodi, also known as the Pakavaj, but Jodi. Sudarshan.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
With Diamond Racing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sarangi.
We don't know where these things, buy these instruments from.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
I love the sarangi. It's so beautiful. This is Taus. can hear it okay. Okay. And this is Dilruba. I always wondered how our ancestors achieved the level of resilience that they did. In the course of the research of these instruments, one thing I discovered is that the instruments were a part of every Sikh's life, to the degree that they were even on the battlefield with them. There's one particular person, by Babak, was recognized. So after they gave Shahidi on the battlefield, they'd taken a bullet to the face, meaning that they were not recognizable. They were identified because of their rabab on their back. If we think about it logically, in terms of warfare, it doesn't make sense to carry musical instruments. You'd want to have more artillery on you if you're in battle. But these instruments were so important that they were not even separated from Sikhs on the battlefield. None of these, like the things that I've shared, this isn't what we get to receive or to be taught about and to hear about. Like, as I said to you, I was looking at the end result. Like, if our gurus achieved this level of efficiency, optimization, and even rule over the people in the land at that time, through sovereignty, through fairness, and through pyar, how was that achieved? Birras is an avastha. It means the state or the mind of a warrior. But how do you achieve that? It doesn't come just through martial discipline. The foundation has to be there first. If you're not attuned with yourself, and you don't know how to speak to yourself, you don't know how to connect with your emotions, you don't know how to face your own demons, then you're not ready to be a warrior. You have to do the work on the inside first. That's why it's Sant, Sipahi. It's not just be a Sant all your life, or renounce that side and just become, a Sipahi, a warrior, somebody of great martial discipline. You have to become both. And you have to become proficient in both too. And one requires the other. When you are a spiritual person, a lot of people that I've met who are on their spiritual path, meditative or whatever path it might be, they want to be in peace, they want to be in ease, and they want to do all those nice, lovely things and just stay away from the world and, maybe do some interfaith work. They don't really want to get into the grit and grime of what the world is suffering with right now. So there's a disconnect. And if we're told to live in the world, to be gristi, to experience what's going on around us, but to achieve a level of balance where we can remain unaffected by the negativity, that requires so much resilience. It's easy to sever something off and say, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to do this. We can all easily activate tunnel vision. What does it take to not do that? What does it take to be in such a state of awareness where you know that the world around you is dark? The world around you is unjust, but you can still operate from a space of serenity and sovereignty. How would your decisions be different then? How would you be different then? But what would it take for you to achieve that, for you to be the embodiment of Sant Sipahi? When lives were taken on the battlefield, every Sikh knew the karam that they were taking on. Every action has a consequence. There's a karam to pay with it too. Our thoughts have karams too. So if you're thinking a negative thought about yourself or about another person, there's a consequence to pay that. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Sorry for interruption. So sorry for that. Thank you so much. Do you know the code? Should I just text you? No, I'm so sorry again.
Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh. I lost my trail of thought. What was the last thing that I just said? Can somebody help me?
We're talking about disconnect, and when you are at such peace, you avoid the noise around you.
Yes, I'm going to try to capture where I was. Karam. Karam are not just our actions in terms of how we treat other people. Karam are how we treat ourselves too. How we talk to other people, saying something to hurt somebody or knowing that it could hurt them. There's a karam attached to that too. When you talk negatively to yourself, there's a karam attached to that as well. If you are the divine, and the divine is you, and the divine is the other person, then we're not meant to speak or think ill of anybody. But this isn't something that you can just switch on. It's something that you have to build yourself up to. It's something that we have to become. And that's the whole pathway of Gurbani, of Kirtan, of Naam Simran. It takes us to that space of readiness. Those things on the battlefield, when they were taking lives and giving their lives, they were aware. They were deeply attuned to their inner consciousness to know that taking a life is wrong, but it's just in this moment. And in service of the greater good, they are willing to take on that karam. Your avastha has to be beyond to step into that and say, I will pay my dues for this. I understand what I'm doing. And that's a high avastha to be in, where you're so tuned into the oneness and so conscious and self-aware and still able to honor what is justice in that moment, in that situation. That is what it means to be Sant Sipahi. That mindset wasn't just magically, it didn't spring up out of nowhere. From the first Guru up until the fifth Guru, we didn't take up arms in physical form. Our activism and our spirit of Sipahi looked different. It was through revolution in different ways. From the sixth Guru onwards is when we took up arms. So it took the first 5 Gurus to prepare our psyche into the space of becoming Sant, and then the later Gurus to teach us what it means to be Sipahi. And we see the embodiment of Sant Sipahi through everything that Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj gave. They gave themselves, their parents, their children, and they gave us musical instruments. They didn't just do that for fun or by chance. They were looking at how to optimize us so we can live with the same level of dignity, honor, and oneness that they did. So this was the path that they gave to us. This is how we return back to being Sant Sipahi. I'm going to end on this slide. This is a lithograph, and it was in the Illustrated London News in 1848 or 1858. The date is not on there. And it's from the inside of Darbar Sahib. So mid-1800s, this is what it looked like. None of those gold bars and segregation and stuff that we see. You have women walking behind, so there was no gender issues either. But what you see there is a rabab and a jodi being played. And that was the norm.
Everybody seems to be dressed more like a bit like Muslim culture rather than what we understand.
Now we have a lot of colonial influence.
Yeah.
In terms of everything, like even our Punjabi clothes, there's evolution that's happened over time, but that doesn't look familiar to us because we're used to seeing something else.
Yeah.
So our aesthetic has changed, but this is what it looked like then. And the rabab, saranda, sarangi, taus, dilruba, the jodi, these were the sounds of our ancestors. These were the sounds of our soul and of our heart. They're where we vibrate and where we become one back with Akal Purkh. So I will end on that note. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
After the break, I'll take questions for anybody that wants to come back. But if you need to head out, that's absolutely fine. No pressure. Yes, I'm going to take this off. If you want to ask questions now while we're here, I'm also happy to answer questions now too. I don't know how to work this.
Have you been to a Simran class on Tuesdays, or and Simran